My name is Alma Hamilton, and I'm 16 years old. Depending on which house I'm standing in, I'm either your mom's weekend or your dad's turn. Nobody ever simply calls me their daughter. And if there's one thing I've learned in 16 years, it's this. You can be biologically related to people and still feel like a guest they forgot they invited. It all started unraveling when I was 15. My dad left my mom for a woman he had been just friends with long before the divorce. She came with a son, Eli, older than me, quieter than me, better at everything, apparently. And then, almost immediately, they had a baby girl, a miracle child, a fresh start, a perfect family snapshot where I looked like the stray kid someone photoshopped in by mistake. My mom remarried soon after. Her new husband, Greg, was the kind of man who always had something to say about my tone. They had a baby too. Another miracle, another set of smiling photos taped to the fridge, none of which included me. Suddenly, I was the only thing in both houses that didn't match. Weekends became negotiations. "Didn't we have her last week?" my mom would whisper to Greg, thinking I was out of earshot. "I can't take her," my dad would mutter over the phone. "We already have Eli's schedule and the baby's sleep issues." No one ever said, "I want more time with Alma." It was always, "I already had her. You take her. It's your turn." When you hear that long enough, you start shrinking. You try to become quiet, invisible, unproblematic, because maybe if you take up less space, they'll complain less. So I stayed out, at friends' houses, school club rooms, libraries, anywhere but home. And when I was home, I stayed in my room, headphones in, face buried in my pillow. My silence, apparently, was rebellion. "Alma, we need to talk about your attitude," my mom said one night, arms crossed, her baby's bottle half filled on the counter. "What attitude?" I asked, genuinely confused. "You're distant, moody, disrespectful." Greg chimed in from the couch without looking up from his phone. "Your sister's only a year old and better behaved than you." "She doesn't do anything except drool," I muttered. Mom's eyes hardened. "There it is, that tone. You're always negative." At my dad's house, the script was the same. "You disappear for hours, Alma," his wife said sharply. "Eli never does that. Why can't you be more like him?" I texted, I said. No one responded. Dad sighed like I was exhausting him simply by existing. "Your siblings don't make everything a big deal. Why do you?" I wasn't drinking. I wasn't partying. I wasn't sneaking out. I was just tired. Tired of feeling like the extra kid in two brand new families that never wanted an extra. And then one night, something inside me cracked. Not dramatically, not explosively, quietly, almost peacefully. It happened at my dad's house. He was working late. His wife had taken the baby out. Eli was at practice. I sat in my room staring at a half-zipped backpack I hadn't fully unpacked from the last transfer between houses. Without really deciding to, I started folding clothes. Shirts, jeans, hoodie, my journal, headphones. It all fit too easily, like I'd been ready for this long before the idea ever surfaced in my head. I left a note on the kitchen counter. "I need a break. I'm safe. Don't call." Then I walked out. The bus station felt like the first place in months where no one needed something from me. No one was measuring how long I stayed or who had had me last. I bounced between friends' couches. The nights blurred together, cheap blankets, borrowed pillows, the hum of unfamiliar refrigerators. It felt strange, terrifying, but also, in some quiet part of me, liberating. 4 days passed. When I finally turned my phone on, the screen exploded with missed calls. Mom, Dad, Greg, my dad's wife, even random numbers I didn't recognize. There were voicemails too, yelling, crying, frantic questions. I walked into my mom's house that afternoon. All of them were there. Mom, Greg, Dad, his wife, the baby asleep in a carrier. Everyone gathered like they were staging an intervention. "There she is," Dad said, standing up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "What the hell were you thinking?" "You disappeared," Mom shouted. "We thought you were dead." "You didn't even notice I was gone until the police called," I shot back. Greg folded his arms. "So now it's our fault you ran away?" "You haven't wanted me around for months," I said. My voice shook, but the words kept coming. "You plan family trips for the day after I leave. You drop me at Grandma's the second I arrive. You hide the fact that there are no pictures of me in either house." "That's ridiculous," Dad's wife snapped. "We have a lot going on. There are babies to take care of. You can't expect constant attention." "Attention?" I laughed, but it sounded broken. "You forgot my birthday." The room stiffened. Mom blinked. "Honey, we were..." "Busy," I finished. Too busy to remember your kid turning 16? Dad's expression hardened. Alma, stop exaggerating. You make everything dramatic. You don't want me, I whispered. Silence, the kind that hits harder than yelling. Dad looked at me like I'd insulted him. You know what? He said through clenched teeth. You're a disappointment. The words sliced straight through me. Good, I choked out, because I hate you. And suddenly everyone was yelling, Greg calling me ungrateful, Dad shouting over him, Mom crying, my dad's wife shaking her head like I was humiliating her. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I dialed the one person who had never acted like I was a burden. Aunt Julie, I whispered when she answered, can you please come get me? She must have heard the chaos behind me, because her voice turned to steel. Put your mother on the phone, she said. I handed the phone to Mom, and I heard Aunt Julie's voice cutting through everything. Furious, protective, unshakable. She is coming with me. Do not argue. 20 minutes later, she arrived. Hair wet from the shower, shoes barely tied, car idling outside. She didn't ask me to explain. She didn't ask who said what. She just opened her arms. I collapsed into her. Come on, sweetheart, she whispered into my hair. You're safe now. And that was it. No one tried to stop me as I walked out with her. Not really. Not in the way a parent fights for a child. A few weeks later, it was official. My aunt became my legal guardian. You'd think the paperwork would hurt, but it was the ease, the lack of fight, that broke me. They let me go like I was nothing. But Aunt Julie, she didn't let me go. She never has. In her small, warm house, she handed me a mug of cocoa and said, This is your home now, Elma. You're not an extra here. I believed her. I still do. When I moved in with Aunt Julie, the adjustment wasn't instant. There wasn't some magical moment where everything suddenly felt safe or healed. It was quiet, gentle, like stepping into a room warmed by sunlight after standing outside in the cold for too long. Her guest room, now my room, smelled faintly of lavender and clean laundry. The bedspread was mismatched, the furniture secondhand, and the walls were bare, but it was the first space in years that didn't feel temporary. No duffel bag in the corner waiting to be repacked. No schedule taped to a fridge deciding which parent had me on which weekend. No baby toys scattered across the floor reminding me of the children they replaced me with. Just stillness, and a woman who looked at me like I mattered. At first, I stayed quiet, uncertain. I half expected her to tire of me, or send me back when things got inconvenient, like everyone else eventually did. When you've spent enough time bracing for rejection, your body stays in that posture long after you've left the battlefield. But Aunt Julie didn't give up on me. Not once. Not even for a moment. She made dinners that weren't fancy, but were made for me. She asked about my day, even when I gave one-word answers. She bought me a cheap spiral notebook and said, You're always writing things down in scraps. Use this instead. She washed my clothes without lecturing me about responsibility. She never raised her voice. It was startling how consistent kindness felt like a foreign language. Meanwhile, my parents faded. They didn't try to bring me home. They didn't demand custody back. They didn't fight or plead or protest. They simply let everything happen with this strange, convenient passiveness. A few texts from Mom saying she hoped I was okay. A sporadic call from Dad, mostly awkward small talk. A random $20 digital transfer with no message attached. It felt less like love and more like checking a box. Obligatory contact made, moving on. Whenever I thought about calling them, something inside me tightened, like my chest was remembering things before my mind could. Aunt Julie noticed, of course. She noticed everything, but she never pushed. If you want to talk to them, I'll drive you, she said once, handing me a cup of tea. If you don't, that's fine too. Your feelings are yours. You get to decide. It was the first time in my life an adult told me I had the right to choose what hurt I let back in. But the real shift happened at school. One of my teachers, Mr. Lopez, the kind who sees more than he says, assigned a short story competition in class. Something simple at first. Write about a moment that changed you. I wrote 3 sentences and then stopped, staring at the page until my vision blurred. A moment that changed me? My whole life had been a collection of moments I was never allowed to name. But that night, in the stillness of Aunt Julie's living room, with her reading on one end of the couch and me on the other, it poured out. Years of disappointment. Splintered family photos. Birthdays quietly erased. The ache of being treated like a chore instead of a child. And the unexpected rescue. The one adult who said, I want you, instead of I have to take you. When I finished writing, my hands were shaking. Mr. Lopez submitted it to a statewide youth writing contest without telling me. A month later, I won second place. Not first, but second was enough to make something inside me unfurl like a tight knot, slowly loosening. There was a small ceremony for the winners: students, teachers, a handful of local writers. My aunt took off work early, dressed up in a floral blouse she usually saved for special occasions, and sat in the front row, smiling like I'd won a Pulitzer. My parents weren't there. I didn't tell them. I didn't want to. When the announcer read my name, I walked up to the stage and looked out at the audience. My aunt's eyes were glassy with pride. She clapped the loudest. And at the end of my small acceptance speech, I thanked her. Only her. Later that evening, she hugged me tight and whispered, "Your voice is powerful, Alma. Don't ever let anyone quiet it again." That night, something inside me shifted for good. My 16th birthday came a few weeks after the ceremony. I didn't expect much, just a normal dinner and maybe a cake. Instead, Aunt Julie invited a few of my closest friends, made my favorite meal, and decorated the living room with string lights that she dug out from old holiday boxes. It wasn't extravagant, it wasn't glossy, but it felt real. She handed me a wrapped box. Inside was a small silver pendant shaped like a quill. "For the writer in the family," she said with a grin. I swallowed hard. Not because of the necklace, but because no one had ever seen me that way, seen me without comparing me to someone else's child. That same night, my mom tried to call twice. I let it ring both times. Later, she left a voicemail. Her voice was shaky, thick with tears, telling me she missed me, that she regretted everything, that she wanted to see me. I listened, waiting for something. Anger, sadness, longing. Instead, I felt nothing. It was like watching a scene in a movie, emotional, dramatic, designed to make you feel something. But I was the wrong audience. I'd already left that storyline behind. Dad called the next day. His voice was serious, almost rehearsed. "I'm worried about you, Alma," he said. "You sound cold, detached. This isn't healthy." Healthy. That word felt ironic coming from the man who used to schedule family outings around my absence. I let him talk. His words slid off me like rain hitting a window, loud, insistent, but unable to reach inside. When I hung up, I stared at the ceiling above my bed and realized something both painful and freeing. I didn't belong to them anymore, not emotionally. Aunt Julie had become my anchor, my guardian, my safe place, legally and otherwise. And my parents? They were familiar strangers I no longer recognized. The irony was that Aunt Julie wanted me to heal things with them. She believed in forgiveness, in people changing, in second chances. But she also believed in me. She never pushed, never forced, never guilted. "You get to choose your pace," she said one evening as we washed dishes together. "Your parents are part of your story, honey, but they don't get to dictate the ending." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe I could walk into any room without feeling the weight of years I didn't choose. I was trying. I really was. But healing isn't about flipping a switch. It's about realizing you don't have to stand in the dark anymore. Part 2 ends right before the surprise intervention meeting at the restaurant. I always thought the worst days announced themselves. A fight in the morning, a bad grade, a slammed door, some kind of warning that a storm was coming. But this one didn't. It started like any other weekday. Normal, quiet, deceptively calm. I was at school, halfway through a history lecture, when the classroom door opened. My counselor stepped inside, scanned the room, and said my name softly. "Can you come with me? It's important." My stomach sank. Nothing good ever follows the words, "it's important." I followed her down the hall, my backpack slung over one shoulder, my mind racing through every worst-case scenario. Had something happened to my aunt? Was she hurt? In an accident? But when we turned the corner, I froze. Standing outside the administrative office, side by side but stiff, like two pillars holding up the same crumbling structure, were my mother and father. Together. That never happened. They looked rehearsed. Clothes too neat, faces too calm, eyes too bright with something that wasn't joy, but desperation disguised as it. "We need to talk," my dad said. Talk. That word again. The kind that always meant, "You listen while we decide what your feelings should be." I glanced at the counselor, silently begging for a way out, but she only said, "They've requested a supervised meeting." Requested, like I was an appointment on their calendar. They could schedule when convenient. My dad gestured toward the parking lot. "We're taking you out for lunch." Lunch? They hadn't taken me out to lunch together in years. The last time was before the babies, before the remarriages, before I became the child passed between households like a weekend chore. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to walk back into class, sit in my desk, and pretend this wasn't happening. But the counselor nodded, gently urging me forward. So I went. The three of us drove in silence to a restaurant I recognized instantly. A small Italian place with red-checked tablecloths and dusty framed photos of families smiling on the walls. A place we used to come to when my parents were still married, before everything broke, before I learned what it felt like to be forgotten. Walking inside felt like stepping into a memory I didn't ask to relive. The hostess seated us at a booth. I took the outside seat, closest to the exit. A small act of rebellion, or self-protection, maybe both. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my mom exhaled shakily. We're here because we're worried about you. I stared at her. Worried? Now they were worried? My dad leaned forward, elbows on the table. You've shut us out completely. You don't answer calls. You don't visit. You didn't tell us about your birthday party. You didn't tell us about the writing contest either, my mom added, her voice cracking. We saw the post online. You thanked your aunt, not us. Their eyes shimmered, not with anger, but with something like regret. It almost would have worked on me if I hadn't grown up in the empty spaces between their attention. I didn't tell you, I said quietly, because it wasn't about you. My mom winced. Dad blinked hard. They both looked at each other, then at me. We messed up, my dad said first. His voice trembled. Not much, but enough that I noticed. We weren't there for you. We let life get in the way. Life. That was a soft word for abandonment. We're sorry, my mom whispered, for missing birthdays, for making you feel left out, for everything. The restaurant music played softly. Italian ballads about love and heartbreak. A couple laughed at a nearby table. A waiter passed carrying plates that smelled like garlic and butter. And in the middle of that soft chaos, my parents were unraveling. My dad rubbed his face, shoulders dropping. Your aunt made it clear we hurt you more than we realized. Please, my mom pleaded, give us a chance to fix things, to be better. We want you in our lives. Really. For a moment, I didn't breathe. This right here, was the thing I used to fantasize about on nights when I stared at ceilings in homes that didn't feel like mine. I used to imagine them waking up, realizing they'd failed me, begging for forgiveness. But reality isn't fantasy. In reality, apologies don't erase years of feeling like a suitcase someone forgot to unpack. I looked at them, not as parents, but as people. People who had made choices. People who had prioritized new children, new homes, new lives, without me. I hear you, I said softly, but I can't pretend the past didn't happen. My mother reached for my hand across the table. I pulled mine back. My dad swallowed hard. We're trying, sweetheart. Sweetheart. The word stung. Not because it was cruel, but because it belonged to a past version of us, one that didn't exist anymore. You're trying now, I said, my voice steady. Because it's convenient. Because I already left. Because Aunt Julie stepped in before you even noticed I was slipping away. Their expressions twisted in pain. I took a slow breath, choosing each word like I was diffusing a bomb. I'm not ready to come back, I said. I'm not ready to pretend everything's fine, and I'm not ready to be hurt again. Tears streamed down my mom's face. My dad's jaw clenched as he blinked rapidly. We want a relationship, my mom said, her voice thin as paper. I need time, I replied, and space and boundaries. Dad's lips tightened. Boundaries, he echoed, as if the word personally offended him. Yes, I said. Boundaries. Starting with this. I'll reach out when I'm ready, not because I owe you, but because I choose to. My mom covered her face with both hands. Dad stared at the table, defeated. A part of me expected guilt to wash over me, but it didn't. Only a quiet, steady calm, like finally standing outside after a lifetime inside a smoke-filled room. I stood up first. They looked up sharply, afraid, hopeful. Thank you for apologizing, I said, but I'm going home. Home no longer meant either of them. It meant a small, lavender-scented room and a woman who chose me without being asked. I walked out of that restaurant into the sunlight. Warm, bright, steady. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was walking away from a family. I felt like I was walking toward myself.